Okay, can you identify yourself to the court? All right, can you hear us now? You need to unmute. Okay, you'll need to unmute your phone.
Okay.
All right, can you identify yourself to the court?
I'm Cedar Slatton.
Okay. So Ms. Slatton, you had noted this up for a contested hearing. Did you get a copy of the officer's report prior to the hearing?
I did.
Okay. I've reviewed the officer's written and sworn affidavit in advance. Are you ready to proceed with the contested hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Can you raise your right hand for me? You swear to testify to the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. Well, I've reviewed the facts as I stated in the officer's report. It looks like your video, there you go. Now is your opportunity to testify in your own defense. So I'm ready to hear the facts that you have for the court today.
Okay. So I have always worn my seatbelt, always. Since the time I was born, I've never driven a vehicle without wearing my seatbelt. And I believe that I was pulled over for a different reason other than not wearing a seatbelt. Because for one, I was driving a manual vehicle and I popped the clutch at the red light. So I feel like that is what got the officer's attention. Another thing that the officer said to me, which is a fact, was that some other police officer notified him that I was not wearing my seatbelt, and that's why he put me over. He told me that not see me not wearing my seatbelt, that it was another officer when he pulled me over. And I also told the officer when I got pulled over, I was wearing my seatbelt and that I took it off as soon as I got pulled over because I've never been pulled over before. And I was nervous and it wasn't my vehicle. It was a manual vehicle that I needed to drive in an emergency state. And that's what I have for you.
Okay. Well, having reviewed the officer's report, the facts outlined in there, there were a number of officers working on a distracted driving enforcement, and there was an officer standing near the stoplight, not in uniform, that was about 10 feet away from you, who advised the citing officer that you did not have a belt on. The officer stated that when he looked at your car prior to pulling you over, that he saw that the belt was not buckled. And then again, when he pulled you over, it was unbuckled. So based on the information contained in the officer's sworn report, I do find that the infraction is committed. And so finding of committed is entered, and the fine imposed will be the fine on the ticket. And you can make contact with the court clerk to make payment arrangements for that fine. So that's the court's ruling today. And that's based on a more likely than not preponderance of the evidence standard. So that concludes your hearing today. If you want to call the court clerk in maybe about 10 minutes, she can discuss payment options with you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Do we have anyone else that's come into the courtroom?
We do, Your Honor. We have Mr. McManus.
Okay. The court calls for Victor McManus.
Hello.
All right, good afternoon. You are Victor McManus.
Yes, I am.
All right, Mr. McManus, you noted this up for a mitigated hearing. That's very different than the contested hearing that the young woman just had before you. You're coming to the court. I understand you want to explain the situation to the court and potentially mitigate these 3 overtime parking violations. So I'll let you explain the situation right now.
I was in court with my attorney, and then we waited till after he was finished in court, and then we went outside and we discussed things a little bit, and then I come out and I see a parking enforcement officer putting the 3rd ticket on my vehicle, and it's like, okay, you know. So, and then he said, well, you got 30-minute parking here and one down here, and I'm sitting there looking, and I was like, I don't really see the one down here. And I come around from the right-hand side of the street, where there's trees and stuff, and I'm on my motorcycle. So I'm watching for traffic, cars, and everything else. I'm on a parking spot. I do admit that I am wrong, because after the officer showed me stuff, and he said, oh yeah, even the trees need to be trimmed back here in front of the administration building over here where I got the ticket. So, and there was like 2 or 3 inmates working on gardening with an officer there, you know. So, and that's part of the reason why I didn't pay attention to up in signs in the tree. You follow what I'm getting at.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to do, Mr. McManus, based on the information you've provided, I'll say this will be a good learning lesson. In the future, there's free public parking just down Broadway from the courthouse for those.
That's what my attorney advised me of after the fact.
Okay. Gotcha. So yeah, you might want to use that next time. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss 2 of the overtime parking violations, and we'll have you pay the amount on the first overtime violation that you received. So I'll cut you a little break there with the explanation of the situation.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. And that concludes your case today.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the courtroom, or are we done?
I think we're done, Your Honor.
All right, well, let's just quickly go through the arraignments who didn't show up. We've got Raymond Allen. I'll issue a bench warrant in the amount of $350. Heidi Brazil, sorry about that. I looked at her history. She has prior outstanding pending theft charges, warrants in a few other courts on the same thing. And I'm going to set a bench warrant amount of $2,000. And did we hear from Shane Road?
No, Your Honor.
All right. I looked at Mr. Rhodes' history. He was cited on the same day into our district court for the same thing. And I'm going to set his bench warrant at $350. Jason Snyder has representation, which brings us last to David Smith. He has priors, and also bench warrants. So I'm gonna issue a bench warrant in the amount of 500 on his case. And then the infractions who, if anyone did not appear, those will just be noted as FTAs, but I think everyone appeared.
Mr. Rhodes had an infraction for expired tabs and insurance. So we'll list FTA those.
Okay. And then there's a hearing by mail at Janet Gatlin. All for that hearing by mail, I'll place the amount of the fine at $10.
All right. I
And
think that's it.
I think that's it.
Okay,
All right, with that said, I'm going to log off.
okay.
Thank you.